Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Today we are going a very, very special webinar, a little bit different in English. We are going to try to talk slowly. I apologize for some minor errors we can make in English, but we have a very, well, not one, but three very special guests today that I'm going to introduce you. And we are going to talk a little bit about young female leaders. In fact, we are going to talk a little bit about women in anesthesia and leadership development. And we are going to bring these two different topics together in some very, very interesting conversation. And we are going to share a little, well, some ideas, some stories, some facts together to this very interesting and a little bit new topic for us in Brazil. So to begin, I'm going to introduce our very special guest speakers. One of them is Dr. Lais Helena Navarro Lima. Dr. Lais, she's our former board director, scientific director from SAESP, from our society. And nowadays she's assistant professor from the Department of Anesthesia, Perioperative Medicine, and Pain from the University of Manitoba. Thank you so much for being here, Lais. We are going to have a resident together with us, that is Dr. Maria Beatriz de Moraes Bastos Gonçalves. Dr. Beatriz is a second-year resident from São Paulo Medical Anesthesia Services, from Syro-Lebanese Hospital here in São Paulo. And we are going to have joining us Dr. Rose Birkin. She's associated professor from the anesthesia department from Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences from the State University of New York. And she's also the former president from New York State Society. And I have to tell you a very, very short story of how did we get into this webinar? How did the idea appear and how it all developed and all began some years ago. Some years ago, during the PGA, I had the opportunity to watch a very interesting session about women in anesthesia. And from this session, I heard so many inspiring stories and experiences, and I had the opportunity to see different, very important and amazing women anesthesiologists supporting each other and sharing experiences and ideas how to develop and how to be better, and sharing also some kind of difficulties they faced in their stories, that I had this amazing feeling to bring that to Brazil. We have to talk a little bit of what's different for women and how can we support each other and develop ourselves. So to begin our webinar, I'm going to ask to put everyone in the room, and I'm going to ask each one of them to present themselves and tell a little bit of their stories. How did they get here? How did they get to this point of their careers? Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start with Dr. Beatriz, that is the youngest one among us. Can you tell a little bit from yourself, Beatriz?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. As Dr. Claudia already said, my name is Maria Beatriz. I'm a second-year medical resident, and my journey is shorter among all of us here. Well, I started my residence 2 years ago, and a year ago, I started as a content creator. I use the social media to talk about the challenges in residency as a medical doctor, as a woman, all these subjects. And it's a nice journey, a nice short journey to have the possibility to talk about this with the public, because sometimes what I'm all the difficulties that I'm struggling is the same that other girls or boys too are struggling too. And yeah, I'm here today with all these references to talk about how to support young females as me to, who knows, spot a place as a leader someday.
Thank you, Bia. Now I'm going to ask Lais to introduce themselves, herself, sorry.
No problem. Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Lais. Many of you know me from Brazil. I'm a Brazilian anesthesiologist. I was part of the São Paulo Society of Anesthesia for a couple of years, and I was able to, and very blessed to be able to work with Claudia, along with Claudia for a couple of years, like putting Copa together and make it special for everybody. And so I'm very happy to be here. Currently, I'm working in Canada. So for the last 4 years, I'm working here in Canada. I'm a professor now at the University of Manitoba in Canada. The city is Winnipeg. It's not a super well-known city in Canada, but it's a big city. It's the fifth biggest city in Canada, and I'm really happy to be here and to share my journey with you. I did my residency, my med school in Botucatu in São Paulo. I worked in Botucatu for many years, and I just changed my life, leave everything behind, and moved to Canada looking for some new challenges. So yeah, you're gonna be very interesting to talk to you about the difficulties that I have here and also in Brazil, and discuss this very important topic.
Great, thank you, Lais. The idea to bring you just to share with everybody here, it's to show and to hear some of your stories and your experience of how a Brazilian female anesthesiology went outside, went to Canada and found a position as a professor in a very renowned, very well-known university. So that's a little spoiler of we are going to talk in some minutes. And I would like to pass the word to Dr. Rose for her to introduce herself also.
Thank you so much, Claudia. First of all, let me tell you, thank you so much for inviting me. And I appreciate that we're speaking in English, and everybody's English is fantastic. And so that you don't feel too bad, English is not my first language. My first language is actually Russian. I was born in Lithuania, and I came to the United States when I was 15 years old. And at the time, I didn't speak any English. So I give you a lot of credit for being absolutely fluent. So my story is interesting. I am associate professor of anesthesiology at the Jacobs School of Medicine in Buffalo, New York. I'm also past president of New York State Society of Anesthesiologists. I'm also past president of my medical school Medical Alumni Association. And currently, I'm the general chair for Postgraduate Assembly in Anesthesiology, which is either second or third largest anesthesia meeting in the world. So I've been in practice for 28 years. You know, you don't achieve everything right away. It takes a long time. But I'm my path to leadership was interesting, and I will tell you a little bit about it. And also, I'll provide kind of like a roadmap of what to do and how to do it if you are interested in becoming a leader. And leaders come in different areas and in different subjects and in different ways. of getting there. And in the United States, this has been addressed for a while now. And my understanding is that in Brazil, women physician in leadership and also in anesthesiology it is at the ground level. So you still have steps to climb, but the pathway there can be very exciting and very fulfilling. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Great. Just for us to start our conversation, Dr. Rose, can you tell us how can we start developing leaders? For instance, to take Beatriz and give her some advices and some pathways. How can she, as an anesthesia resident, try to start to develop herself, and how can we as a society support her? How do you do that in the US, in New York?
Sure, absolutely. So first, you have to kind of feel passionate about something, and you have to identify what you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about something, you're going to be good at it. There are three kind of pathways to leadership within medicine, right? There's academic medicine, where you go from, a student, a resident, to assistant professor, associate, all the way to professor, full professor. There is clinical practice, where you can be a department chair, you can be chief medical officer of an institution, you can be a CEO, you can be president of the medical staff. So that's the clinical pathway. The third pathway is organized medicine, and that's where your organization, anesthesia organization, comes in. So you have to decide what you're passionate about. I was always passionate about organized medicine. In the United States, medicine has two aspects. There is the practice of medicine, and then there's the business of medicine. And if we don't address both, then our patients suffer. So what organized medicine does is make sure that the legislation that we have, that the laws that we have, do not put our patients at a disadvantage. For example, we have a big battle with non-physicians who would like to have full privileges as a physician. Nurse anesthetists, midwives, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and it's a big battle because obviously they don't have the same education, the same training as we do. So this is just an example. So I'll give you a little background about myself. Like I said, I'm very passionate about organized medicine, and my pathway started when within our district, our society is very big, right? New York State Society of Anesthesiologists, and we have we are split into 8 areas, and we call them districts. And each district has kind of its own small government, and then we have the big governors with the board and the big officers. So the female president of my district where I belonged, she was moving up to the big board, and she was going to sit with the big boys. So she asked me, and at the time, I wasn't even thinking of anything. I just liked kind of like coming to meetings and listening and participating. And she said, Rose,
I think we may.
I'm so sorry. I wasn't connecting. I'm back. So
No
anyway,
problem.
I wasn't sure if this is something I wanted to do, but I said yes. And the reason I said yes, because I felt that if she believed in me, and I really looked up to that woman because she was very accomplished, if she believed in me, then maybe I can do it. And that's how it started. But then I dived right in, and I did a lot of work as the district director, and from there I moved up to treasurer and president-elect, and then finally president of our organization, NYSSA. So the same pathway you can do within academic medicine. And the same pathway you can do within clinical practice. Now, what do you need to get there? How do you get there, right? Number one, you need mentors. Mentors are people who will provide guidance and support. Okay, so guidance, they will tell you based on your interest, which pathway to go. They can connect you with other people. They can let you know what you need to do to get to the next step, right? And not necessarily that person will be a female. Just because a female in a leadership position is, let's say, in your department or in your institution, doesn't mean that person is interested in promoting other women. So it could be a male, but it's somebody who will give you, kind of like the roadmap how to get there. What's also very, very important is sponsorship. Sponsorship is very different from mentorship. Sponsorship happens at the level when a person, let's say physician, achieved a level of leadership, but is sponsoring others who are younger and behind them in terms of their career, sponsors them to actually move up. And that can happen in all kinds of different ways. For example, in academic medicine, they can invite that person to be part of their research, because you need research in order to advance in academic medicine. Or within either academic medicine, organized medicine, or clinical medicine, there are always lectures, right? We always do presentations and lectures. So we can spotlight that person and we can say, okay, I am giving a lecture on this topic, right? But for 5 minutes, you give an opportunity to this other person who is younger in career to also participate as a panelist, as a maybe short speaker. So there are ways of doing it. Also, as a leader, you're able to promote other people by putting them on committees, making them chairs of committees, making them leaders within different organizations. And that's what I did. So I did that throughout my career. As soon as I moved up, I identified a woman who was capable, not because she was a woman, a female anesthesiologist, because I knew she was capable of doing an excellent job. And so when I moved up from my position as district director, I already identified somebody from Buffalo who moved into my position. And as I moved up, I introduced other women to our society. I invited them to speak within our society, within medical societies, and that's how I promoted them. When I became president of our society, I had a chance to appoint committees and committee chairs. Well, all my committee chairs were women, and it was interesting because the males on our board, they were a little surprised. And I heard all these comments, Rose, what are you doing? Why are you appointing all these women? And I was thinking, this was the first time that happened, right? That all these women became chairs. With all the years, right? For 70 years prior to that, when all the males were chairs, no one questioned that, right? So it's interesting, the responses I got. And another thing I did, and this was specifically to help women to learn how to be leaders, is I appointed ad hoc committee for women in medicine. And I thought it was going to be a piece of cake, no big deal, because our male colleagues are very supportive, and they're great. I mean, I've never heard them, to say anything negative about the women. They always, they took pride in highlighting our female members of NYSSA. So when I said this is what I would like to do when I was president, it was my prerogative to appoint an ad hoc committee. They were like, Rose, but why? What do we need? Then we need to appoint other committees for every subsection. And my answer was this: okay, show me a committee within our organization that addresses every issue that women physicians face. Okay, number one, we still make less money, right, than our male counterparts. On the average, several years ago, the statistics was women physicians in the United States make 20% less than male physicians. So when you extrapolate it into the 40-year career, on the average, women cumulatively will make $6 million less than their male counterparts. Okay, so that's a big issue. 2, women in leadership. Okay, how many CEOs of hospitals, how many deans of medical schools are women? Very few. Okay, how many women are percentage-wise in male-dominated specialties, in surgery, in urology, used to be in anesthesiology, in radiology? So you tell me which committee addresses those issues, and then I'll tell you, okay, then we don't need that women physicians committee. And they couldn't counteract. So that committee moved forward, and the following year it became a standing committee. And that's, Claudia, the product of that committee that you saw. We had presentations at the PGA. We had other initiatives throughout the year, and now this committee is in. God, I was president 2017. So since 2017, this committee has been active, and I would say one of the most active committees within our society. So I was very proud to start that. And you can do the same thing in the Sao Paulo Society. You don't have to start big. You can start small. You can start at your small chapter level and invite just a few women to come together, okay, and start. And it's good to involve young physicians, older physicians, so that you can talk about what the issues are and how you can address them. And then you expand from there.
Great. It's amazing to hear that you have some similar difficulties when you started. Because here in Brazil, then I'm going to ask Lais to tell a little story and her experience, because some years ago we had this experience. We started just very small. Let's do a panel to talk about women in anesthesia. And we were a little bit surprised because many people told, oh, you don't? Why that? We don't need to talk about that. You are not victims. You are not different. Well, we are a little bit different. We have some different issues, and we must at least talk about that. So that, I think that's the main point. We have to start talking about the topic. We have to understand the different situations we face. And then later, maybe we can change this reality and do different things and have more opportunities. I think this is something very, very interesting. Lais, can you tell a little bit to us about this past experience in Brazil, and how is it in Canada? How did you face the moving to Canada, and how is to have also a leadership position in Canada, being a Brazilian?
Yeah. So I was thinking here that there are many reasons before I start to talk about that I'm glad to be here today. And the one thing is, when I read the topic and the title of the presentations, like younger leaders, blah, 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 I was like, I'm young in the heart, so I deserve to be there.
Yes, for sure, we all are.
Anyway, so yeah, as Claudia mentioned, I think the year was 2019, and we had like a very wonderful moment to grab, because by that time, the president of the New York Society was a woman. The president of the American Society was a woman. We had a vice president of the São Paulo Society as a woman. And so we thought, okay, that's the perfect moment to talk about leadership in anesthesia and how this can be achieved by women, right? Women anesthesiologists, especially in Brazil. Because I don't know, Rose, if you ever heard about that, but up to maybe up to today, still there are still are groups in Brazil, anesthesiology groups in Brazil that doesn't accept women. They're all male groups, and they don't accept. And the big groups, like the big anesthesiology corporations in Brazil that accept women, they never get to the superior board. They are never on the directors of the group or the treasurers of the group. Never. So this is still very current in Brazil, right? And then we were very excited, Claudia and I. We were just speaking, like, try to plan how to do it. And for our surprise, the women inside the society, like in the society, the São Paulo society, and even out of the São Paulo society, were very much like not liking the idea. They told us, we are not victims. Why we have to talk about this? There is not an issue. And we're like, oh my God, if this is not an issue for you,
We don't know what is.
And I was reading a little bit about this topic before I came here to talk to you, and there are many papers nowadays discussing this issue, for at least for the last 10 years, discussing not only women in medicine, women in anesthesiology, but all other minorities as well, right? And one of the papers says, if you don't measure, if you don't talk about it, you cannot fix it, right? So that was caught us by surprise. And even during the panel was a very interesting dynamic, because I don't remember her name, but the president of the American Society, the president of the New York Society, they were so excited to talk about the topic. And the Brazilians in the panel was like, oh, okay, I have to be here. It was so amazing to us. But that make us realize that we have to talk about, and we have to start to show data about that in Brazil. So I think without against data, there is no discussion. Okay, so we have the data, you have to agree with the data, we have to discuss that. So when I decided to move to Canada, I was very surprised that, not surprised, but it was a very good experience to be able to realize that they have the discussion many years ago here. So they're keeping up with the discussion. They are keeping up with the measures and policies to make Canada in general more diverse. And they believe that the diversity makes the country better in many different ways. And anesthesia is not a different situation, right? So, however, when you go to the real world, to day-to-day practice, we still see, even in a country that perceives the differences between, the earns of the female physicians are different, the opportunities are different, we have to support them, blah, blah, blah. One of the very first experiences I had here, and I come from a special background because my husband is also an anesthesiologist. So we are both at the same field, start at the same time in a new place, right? So when I was in Brazil, we have different careers. I was much more involved in the leadership positions than he was. He was much more clinical practice guy. But here we are exactly the same. We start over from zero. And when I was here for 3 months, I was first in Ontario. Once I was doing my anesthesia there, And a female anesthesiologist, a female colleague, came to me and sit by my side. She's just the most amazing person ever. Like, very accomplished professor, very accomplished. She's amazing. Her name is Rachel, and she sit by my side and asking me, "Can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And she was like, "I noticed something, and I'm just wondering if I can ask you if you notice that as well." Canadians are very polite, right? Very, very polite. So, and I was like, "Oh, of course, tell me." It's like, I noticed that Rodrigo, my husband, is always doing like very complex cases, very interesting case, very sick patients, and he's just like exceeding on that and blah blah blah. While you are doing more like simpler cases, you are not doing like the most interesting cases of the day. You are never doing like the most complex case of the day, or the sicker patients of the day. And she asked me, "Did you ask for that? Like, did you say something when you move here? Like, oh, let's start slowly." And I was like, "No, I never asked anything like that." And she turned to me and she was like, "So pay attention and make your point, because you are as good as him. You can do exactly the same thing that he can do it, but you have to make the point, because they're not doing this by any like me. They are not trying to be mean to you. They didn't realize that
What
they
they
are doing that." And of course, the person that took care of the schedule was a woman. And then I went there and talked to her, and I told her, "Hey, so I don't know, what's the feedback that people are giving to you about my job? I just want to hear about that." And we are very much about feedback here, right? And she was like, "No, you're doing great," and blah blah blah. I was like, "So can you give me some more complex case?" And she was like, "Why?" And I said what like Rachel points out, and she was like, "Oh my God, I never realized that. And thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I gonna start to pay attention to that." So after a while, we are doing the same case and blah blah blah. In fact, I was doing the horrible case after that, so, of course. And but after myself and Rodrigo start, other fellows start there, and other female anesthesiologists start there, and they were more balanced. So sometimes we don't realize that we are putting in a subside position, and because it's so normal, it's so normalized, that we can be more submissive, and we can, stay in our little corner there, and just sometimes somebody has to point this out for us. And I love what Rose said about, like, you can be a CEO, you can be, and it's true, you have to believe on that, and you believe on that, and you pay attention what's going on around you, you can do anything.
Great. It's amazing to hear that, because sometimes we are a little bit afraid of talking and saying anything. Okay, I'm a woman. I cannot do that. There's no other women out there. And I'm going to share a small part of my history, because I work in two different places here in Brazil for many, many years, in a public service and in a private service. In the public service, I work in a hospital that is connected to the São Paulo University and the medical school from São Paulo University here in São Paulo. It's the biggest university in Brazil. And I also work in a very well-known private hospital, where we have our residency program, where also Dr. Beatriz is doing her residency. And there we have a very huge group, a very traditional anesthesia group there with more than 80 years. And we used to not have women in the group as co-owners or partners, and we are changing this reality nowadays. We are starting to have, we do not have balance yet, but we are going better. Because if we had this conversation maybe 5, 7 years ago, it was a different reality. And now things are changing, and women are going in a different position in the group as co-owners and doing a great job and showing people that despite being men or women, we can do good. The problem is not the sex, it's not being a woman or being a man. We must work well. We must do what we want, what we like, what we are passionate about. And I think all of us must develop ourselves. And I loved what Rose told us about this little road trip that we can go with different situations. And especially for Beatriz, that is here with us, I'd like to hear her a little bit about how is being a women resident and seeing these differences that we all talked about and that they see when they start in anesthesia. There are more men in the surgical field until now, and also in anesthesia. We are trying to grow the number of women. We are growing, but we are a little bit different yet. How is to see that as a resident and to think, am I going to have good opportunities? Will I be able to gather? How is to see this reality in your situation?
First of all, I'd like to make a little comment about what Dr. Lais talked about. I saw a TED talk in the past few weeks, and the speaker told about Cinderella syndrome that some women have. The Cinderella syndrome is like we make everything okay, we make the great work, we are good girls, and we expect to be um, gifted because of all the good work. But actually, we need to ask. We need to ask what is ours. But we weren't taught to ask. No one taught us to ask. So it's really hard to break this system and change our mentality about this. Yeah, but talking about be a female resident, there is some situations that I keep asking myself, oh my god, if I was a guy, I will heard this. Probably no. If I was a guy, I will not pass through the same thing as being a female. But nowadays, I think there is more representative women in power than was 10, 20 years ago. And this is a hope. Because if we don't have a reference, if we don't have um, leader to follow, how can we imagine be in that? How can we imagine us to be in that spot one day? It's almost impossible. And unfortunately, nowadays, when we think about a leader, what is the profile of that leader? Probably everyone here think about the same profile. And we need to change our mentality. We need to change our the way that we act, the way that we think, because this will help all the newest residents there are around there to achieve these spots. So it's a continuous job, it's a continuous effort to make the environment more better, more equal, more fair. And it's really good to have leaders as Dr. Claudia in our service because she helped all of us. She gave opportunities. She gave space, and it's a real luck to have her.
We have to support ourselves. I think that's what we are doing here, sharing our stories. Every woman has a story in anesthesia that she faced some difficulties, some troubles, some microaggressions sometimes, some not so, let's say, nice words. We all face this situation. I'm not saying that men doesn't face that, because they have some difficulties and different situations. And I think we must talk about that openly. I had some colleagues, men colleagues, that were complaining because they had small children. They just had their babies, and they weren't able to be at home to help her wives and to help the children. And they were, well, completely, how can I say, they were not lucky. They were not happy with that, to be at the hospital and not home helping. But it's cultural. The men stay only a few days here in Brazil, home, just a few, really few. And then he goes back to the work, and the women stay a little bit more, some months, taking care of the children. But why didn't they have this opportunity? This is something very different among the sex. And we also must talk about that. We must talk about both sides. When we are talking about minorities, when we are talking about the different situation women face, we're not talking only about women. We are talking about different situations. And I think this is very, very, very important. And I'm going out of this webinar with a very, very high expectation that in the near future, we have a committee in São Paulo or even in Brazil regarding women in anesthesia to discuss these topics. And when people are going to say, oh, why do we have to have this committee? Why do we need? I know the answer now. I'm going to follow Rose's steps because it's true. We must talk about that. I'm going to give you a little spoiler of one abstract we are sending today to our annual meeting, where Dr. Beatriz here, she looked at the different sessions about our meeting in the last 10 years. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bia?
Yes, we looked for the past 10 years of all the sessions in COPA, and our objective was to expose the gender disparity in all these sections, because only one session has more women than men. Only one. The rest of all 20 sessions are more men than women. Some of them, no women in 10 years. No, not single women in 10 years. And we need to talk about it, because the feeling is like, if you don't talk about the problem doesn't exist. But it's not like that. We need to talk. We need to find solutions to this problem, because I can't believe that there isn't a single woman that could talk about this subject, this section. There is, but probably, well, there is no motivation to go after this woman. And if we don't have women's leaders looking for this, who will? So we need to talk, we need to show the data, because against the data, there is no argument. I think this is the mainly message of our paper. It's not a paper, it's an abstract. But, well, we want to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. That's actually the first step. So first you look at how many women participated in your sessions, right? Then you have to take a look at your organized medicine. How many presidents in all the years of Sao Paulo Society of Anesthesiologists, how many women presidents there were. Okay. Then you look at committees. How many committee chairs were women? How many board members were women? And you go from abstract to a paper. You should publish that paper. American Society of Anesthesiologists actually published a paper about women leaders within our society. And it was pitiful. It was very pitiful. Lais, you were fortunate to see a female president of American Society of Anesthesiologists, and we actually had 3 in a row, which was just absolutely amazing. And within NYSSA, we're going to have the same thing. I think I was maybe 4th or 5th in like 80 years, right? But following me, we already had Dr. Wilma Joseph, who followed me as president. And we're going to have 3 female presidents in a row. But that doesn't happen just arbitrarily. It happens because we acknowledge that there is a disparity, and we would like to promote women. And we do what we can to make sure that we form future leaders who are women in medicine, and we show them the path, how to get there. One thing I would like to say, just because you're a woman and you're in medicine and you want to be a leader doesn't mean you will be. You have to do the work. That's why it's very important what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about something, you're going to do the work. And the way you start is by asking to do the work. Let's say you are in a hospital and like Dr. Lais, you just started and you're interested in being, on some committees. You come and you say, you're department chair. What can I do? Which committee can I join? How can I help? And let's say they give you absolutely the worst assignment, right? That's okay. You succeed. You show them how good you are. So once they see that you're willing to do the work and you are passionate about it and you're good at it, people will notice and they will start promoting you. I'll give you another example. For many, many years, I lived in New York. And I'm part of New York State Society of Anesthesiologists and also Medical Society of the State of New York. However, a couple of years ago, I started spending a lot of time in Florida. And because I'm so passionate about organized medicine, I figured, you know what, let me join the Medical Society in Miami and also in Florida. And when I joined, it was literally about 1.5 years ago. Since then, I'm already an incoming chair for Women Physicians Committee, and I'm vice president of Political Action Committee, and I'm a delegate from our county to the State Society, Florida Medical Association. And it didn't just happen, and I wasn't looking for it, I wasn't asking for it. But what I did, I joined different committees and I started participating. And I started offering, for women in medicine, I'm very passionate about women in medicine. They've had a committee since 2015. They had maybe 2 meetings where they had about 5 women attend each. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's revamp it. So we started networking sessions. We had one, we have another one coming up where we're hoping to get about 50 people. And then we're going to have a symposium for women physicians in the summer. So it's, you have to do the work. You have to show that you're capable and successful, and then people will ask you to do stuff. And when they ask you, you say yes, and you do the work. And that's how you're going to move from one level to the next and to the next.
That's amazing just to listen to you speak about that, because the one thing I feel that's different in Canada from Brazil, since my recruitment interview here, I feel that in North America, the leaders, they have a vision about a career pathway for you. So when I did my recruitment interview for Winnipeg, I mentioned that I was in some of leadership positions in Brazil, academic and also organizational medicine. And I feel that mention that and making sure that they know about my passion and my experience in leadership made them help me to pursue some of future positions here, right? So last week I have a meeting with the head of the department, and he told me, I have big plans for you. You have to overcome some of the little things that's bureaucratic speaking. There are few little things that I have to do before. But I think this is one of the differences in North America. You can really pursue that. You have to show up, of course. You have to be there. You have to be part of the thing and be clear that it's something that you want to do. But since you are there and since you will speak, you're gonna have somebody to guide you in a way or another, right? In Brazil, we still, I think I feel, I don't know, Claudia, how you feel about that. We still have to like rip some like layers and layers and layers of difficulties to get there. So sometimes what I feel in Brazil is if you are too assertive about a few things, like I want to be there, I want to get there, I want to get to the CEO position, I want to be the president of the society, you are looked as like not a very nice person, very ambitious to be a woman, take it easy, someday maybe. And that's very clear for the Brazilian society. For example, Brazilian society, we just had our second
Female
president of the Brazilian society. Yeah, female president of the Brazilian society in decades. So, and I know many, 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 many women in Brazil that you're gonna be a wonderful job there. Like you're gonna be as good as better than many of my wonderful friends that were male and presidents. So why is that? So I think why we don't like why we are not normalizing this drive to be a leader, to be part of the improvement or the growth of our specialty in Brazil. We're still gonna be a little bit behind of the other place in the world.
And I think we are doing the first steps. We are talking about that, sharing these ideas and doubts and questions. And we have a very, very interesting question from Dr. Liana. She's an amazing women anesthesiologist from the Northeast, from the country. And she's asking, how can senior women anesthesiologists act as effective mentors and advocates for young female leaders in their organization? Rose, can you help us?
Sure. So I love mentoring medical students and residents. When you become a mentor to a resident or a medical student or a young physician, it's kind of individual. So you look at their needs. What are their needs? Are they interested in leadership development? Are they struggling with work-life balance? Because that is very important too. So maybe you have to teach them how to have a support system. A lot of young women who are at the start of their career, and let's say they have young children, they're struggling. They can't, they're struggling to combine. They work very hard and they come home and they have to work again. So you tell them how to balance that and how to have a support system that washing dishes and doing laundry is not important. What's important is spending quality time with your husband and your child, right? So, and a lot of women don't understand that. Once they have a supportive system, then it's much easier to look at other things and how to advance. If they're interested in academic career, then you help them out and you let them know how to become a co-author, or a junior author in a paper. You tell them how important it is to participate in different conferences, in lectures. And sometimes it's small. Sometimes it's just for your own hospital, maybe a little presentation, but that's how you start and that's how you move. So I guess what I'm trying to say that is being a mentor is an individual basis, and you look at your mentee and you ask her what her goals are, what her passions are, what her problems are, and you help them navigate through all that.
I think that I dare to say we have to match the interests of what the mentee needs and what can we offer, how can we support them. It's sometimes not the same for every mentee. We have many different situations, and I think once we start to understand better how can we give some suggestions and help them navigate through this storm that is our professional career, since residency until the late phases. And we also need mentors in different phases. It's not only for the young. I know that the title of the webinar were regarding the youngest ones, but we also need some mentorship of how to finish the career, what are the options, how is to be an old woman in anesthesia. We also must talk about these different topics and situations and realities. So I think, well, we have many, many, many topics to talk and to develop and to learn from each other. We had an amazing hour. It just passed, well, very, very quickly. And I would like to ask each one of you to have a little message to everyone that is hearing us. I'm going to start from the youngest, then go to Lais, and to Rose, not for the age, but for the importance and representing the New York State Society, okay? Bia, can you start and say a little bit of how was the experience in talking here and hearing our stories and sharing some of your reality and difficulties?
It was a richful experience, priceless actually. And I think my final message is, if you want something, you need to ask. Sometimes expect and do your nicest job ever, do your nicest work ever, and feel that you are the best professional in the room. Sometimes this is not enough. You need to ask, and you have to find someone to follow. You have to find a mentor to talk about, to discuss, to make a road. What is your plan? What is your plan to your career? And last but not least, I like to say thank you to Dr. Claudia for this opportunity, and thanks to SAESP for this space here today to talk about this important matter.
Great, thank you so much, Bia. Lais, can you tell a little bit of a final message of and how to inspire people that are hearing us?
I think I always like you know me, and most of the people that knows me, I'm a helpless positive person. So I always believe that in the better in people, in the better in the world. So I believe that we can be better for the younger females, for the younger males, for our younger residents, students, for our older fellows, older colleagues as well, showing them that the world is changing. And we have to change with the words, and we have to adapt our beliefs and our attitudes to be keep up with this new world that we're in. So I'm very grateful that I had wonderful people that helped me during my career. Many men, many women, and I'm very grateful that I have many women anesthesiologists in Canada that really look out for me. I feel very embraced here, and I know that if we support each other as women, as professionals, and not in being in the position of a victim, because we are not. We are wonderful, We are very hardworking, competent, intelligent. We are awesome. So just like if you when we realize that when we get together, we are a force to be beaten. Nobody gonna stop us. So believe that you can do it. Go forward. Don't be afraid to ask, not only for opportunities, but ask for help. Ask for, for a hand to hold sometimes. Nobody can stop us. So, and I really like one thing that you told us behind the scenes, that there is not a thing as a specific personality to be a leader. Claudia and I, we are just the opposites. We are yin and yang, but we believe in it's the same thing. We believe that we can do better. We can do better for the anesthesia. We can do better for the society. We can do better for the younger girls that are coming behind us. So it's all you need. And thank you. I love to be here, and I'm looking forward to see you in person in April. On Copa. Copa is it's my heart. So we're going to be wonderful to see you in person.
Thank you so much, Lais. It's amazing, and it's very powerful to hear that, because many young females are hearing us now, and it's special for them to hear this and say, okay, I can do better. I can have a different place. I can be someone different, and I can do and help others and be there in the society, in my hospital, in my anesthesia service. It's something very, very powerful for many people. So thank you so much for sharing that so passionately. Thank you so much. And Rose, please, your final message.
I guess, yeah, my final words are: believe in yourself. You are wonderful. You're fantastic. The fact alone that you finished medical school and you finished residency, or as Beatriz is in residency, makes you one of the smartest people in the country, right? So you already have that. Believe in yourself. Say yes when somebody asks you, even if you don't think you're ready, because if they believe in you, you should believe in yourself. And you can achieve anything. If you have a vision, don't be afraid. Go for it. And there are going to be times when you will make a mistake. And it's okay. It's totally okay, because we'll learn from those mistakes and we can teach others not to make those mistakes. So believe in yourself. Go for it. If you have a vision and passion, you can achieve anything you want, and you can be anything you want.
Thank you so much. And I would like to finish our webinar with an invitation for you all. I would like to invite all of you that are hearing us, that are together with us in this webinar, to come to COPA and to a very, very, very special session that we are going to discuss some very specific points regarding women in anesthesia, because we do not give up easily. So we are bringing the topic once again, and we are going to talk more and more about it. So Rose will be with us, Lais will be with us, Beatriz will be with us. We will all be together, and we will have the chance, the opportunity to discuss many of the topics we mentioned here and many other different ones. So bring up different ideas and questions and join us. I would like to finish with this invitation for you all to see in person in April here in São Paulo. So thank you once again for you all, Rose, Lais, Beatriz. Thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone that is following us and watching us on this Monday evening. Thank you so much for being here and for hearing for this very, very specific and different topic. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.